To our loyal listeners, welcome back. And to new listeners all over the world, welcome to Take Flight Podcast with your favorite quartet, Shawel, Daniel, Olu, and Pabilo. This is the last episode of 2022, or 2022 as others call it, and it's episode 163. This last episode of the year is going to be a year in reflection, where we're going to just share some of the key stories and events that have been happening over the year throughout the world, and just share a few things of what we learned about ourselves in this year and what we're looking forward to in 2023. So without further ado, let's get to the music and start this episode.
Take off, take flight with you. For we never fly, but we're flying.
So guys, it's been a crazy year. I think there's been a lot of events that have happened. But before we get to that, how are we all doing? Gearing up to the final week of 2022. Everyone, I'm sure, is about to embark and enjoy and indulge in the festivities of what this time of year has to offer. So, with that said, Olu, how are you? How's work? How's life?
Daniel's saying that because he knows I'm not technically off work yet. So Daniel called me a few days ago. Basically, it felt like he was unemployed. Just he was watching the World Cup replay. Maybe a week after the actual World Cup final. And I'm not talking about just highlights. I'm talking about the full game. Full game.
Yeah. Full match.
You know when someone is officially off or got time on their hands, when they can watch a full game, when you can watch a highlight, a 5-minute highlight. But right now, end of year is really crazy and busy for me as well. I started a new role, which the listeners know about.
So what role is that? Olu,
what's the title behind that one as well? What's the title?
So it's a CFO of a I'm not going to mention the company, but
just for the P&L
sensors,
size.
yeah.
Just the P&L size. You can just mention the P&L size.
No, I don't need to. We don't need to. Why is every time in this group here we're always pocket watching. We're always pocket watching on this podcast.
No, it's not pocket watching.
At the end of the year, it's really crazy for us because we got the financial reporting. So it's really busy. I'm trying to sort of carve out some time to rest, spend time with family over the holiday period. So I'm really looking forward to the Christmas period and also New Year's. But between that, I'm just working. So it's crazy at the moment.
Okay, good to hear. Shawel, how are you?
Yeah, all good on my end. It's been a busy and interesting end to the year, but overall in a good space. I am slowly switching off for Christmas, but do have a couple of Cambridge assignments that I need to get done before I can actually switch off properly. But from a work perspective, everything's good. Property-wise, things are on track. So yeah, overall in a good space and looking forward to closing a pivotal year, I would say, the least. P, how are you doing?
Yeah, very similar. I feel at this time of the year, I feel great, and we'll get into sort of why. I think it's been a fantastic year. So just trying to use the next week or two just to sort of take a break to get ready for the new year. As you can hear from my voice, maybe I think I've managed for so long not to get a cold, and it's now catching me. So, but yeah, all good. Family's well. I'm really well. I think preparation for this episode was just to reflect on the year, and looking back, it's been a very great year for many reasons. So now I'm in a good space. All good. Daniel.
Yes. Last but not least, yeah, I'm doing well. As Olu alluded to, I'm off work till the new year, spending some time with the family, and just really just spending some time or using the time to recharge as much as possible. But yeah, all good other than that. But 2022, what a year. So if I just run through some things that have happened, all of which is public knowledge. So there was the Russia-Ukraine war that was early in the year. Then there was the hike in energy prices kind of within Europe. We had Elon Musk publicly stating he wanted to buy Twitter, buying Twitter, and as of last week, putting a poll out to say should he step down as CEO, then saying he will step down as CEO once he's found a suitable replacement. We've had protests in Iran that have turned ugly and hasn't had a lot of media coverage globally. We've also had the continual rise in inflation rates globally. We've had FX rates, especially the GBP against USD in turmoil. Not to mention the looking for a nice way to put it, the changing of hands and faces at number 10 Downing Street this year as well. So there's been a lot of that's there's been a lot that's happened that I haven't even mentioned. Of course, the passing of Her Majesty the Queen, and of course many other deaths as well. And then from a more personal front, January started of me starting a new role within Coinbase. In the summer, Pabilo welcomed his second child. Shawel got married. Olu got the title of CFO. So there's been a lot globally, but there's also been a lot within the four of us as well, that we've all made you aware of, and we continue to take you on that journey. So it's been an interesting year. I think it's been some ups, some downs, and it definitely makes 2023 somewhat a nervy, anxious, but also a year for excitement and opportunity. And I thought this would be a good way for us just to sort of reflect on the year. Not, we're not a podcast that go into political issues or things that are, up for debate or controversial. We like to make, podcasts that are going to be educational and purpose driven. So that's our aim, and that's what we'll continue to do. And we thought, we'll share, what have we learned about ourselves this year? It could be professionally, it could be personal, business related. And we can also share later something or things that we've regretted not doing in this year. Of course, there's still somewhat 9 days to turn that around, and then we can maybe close off with what are we looking forward to in 2023. Without further ado, maybe I can kick it off unless there are any volunteers who want to start it.
Now, Daniel, you can go.
Okay, so I think what have I learned about myself in 2023? So I learned that I can take on more than I thought I could. I say that because I started the year becoming a father, or I started the year first. In fact, if we just backtrack to a year ago, I handed in my resignation after 9 years at Bloomberg. And that was something I never thought, not that I never thought I would do, but it happened very quickly, given that an opportunity came along. And then I spent the next kind of 4 weeks preparing myself for a new role, but also preparing myself for a new role as a dad. And I started the year with a new role, then 5 days later, welcoming my son. And it was quite a challenging time trying to juggle two things. I'm starting a new company where I have to sort of prove myself, prove my value, prove my worth, and start to drive impact relatively early in a very high pressured environment. And also having to be there for my family, having a son who's completely dependent on you, and also a wife who's just given birth. And that continued to magnify throughout the year. And whilst doing other things as well, it's like, well, you never really think you're capable of doing something unless you're in the fire itself. And when you're in the fire, you realize that, it's pressure that you can deal with. Not that you wish any more, but it's like, okay, you learn a lot about yourself through that time. And I learned that, okay, whilst it's not pleasant, I'm surviving. My head's above water. I'm breathing. I'm fortunate to be in this position. So I think when you look at and focus on the positives, I think you have a newfound, element of not only respect, but appreciation, I think. Another thing I learned about myself is I demand a lot of myself. I've probably known that before, but I've also probably realized that more now than ever. I think work, being in a remote first environment or remote working, is I demand a lot to push myself to achieve a lot and put high targets on myself and high goals in what I want to achieve professionally. And that's something I was doing, and I was working very hard throughout the year to do that, because I felt like I've constantly had to prove myself. And I'll just say on the last thing, what I've learned, and the three of you may laugh, and some of the listeners who have listened to episodes last year when we spoke about the pandemic and working from home and commuting, is I do miss the office to some degree. So let me elaborate on that. So many of you have heard that. Oh yeah, I hate the commute. I hate the commute. I want to work from home. And I'm not gonna lie, I've enjoyed working from home. But one thing I've missed is, so I think the great benefit I have is I work from home full time unless I choose to go into the office. But I've seen the benefit of being able to get out of the house and go into the office and interact with colleagues. Not that I work directly with them, but just interact and build a rapport with them and widen my network within the company. And that's something I've enjoyed doing. you could argue that the number of times I've been in the office wouldn't reflect that, but nevertheless, I've enjoyed it. And I thought I would share only 3, but then the last thing I'll share is just how much I've enjoyed in-person interaction. I think the 4 of us, for the first time in since 2018, we were all at Sherelle's wedding. So that being able to, see people in person, to share time with people, spending time with P and his family in Switzerland, it's just something you can't really take for granted, and that's something I've really, really enjoyed throughout this year, of seeing people spending more time having those organic conversations that you would have when you're in person, rather than specific targeted calls that you'd have, or specific reasons for calling someone. So that's something I will wrap with. Yeah.
Looks like Olu's great. Looks like Olu's grading your reflection.
Yeah. Olu's grading it. Or maybe he's been inspired by some things I've said that he wants to copy.
Exactly.
So Olu, you're next.
You can tell that who's done the prep work and who hasn't. So Olu, how about you go? And then your challenge is to say something completely different to Daniel.
Sure. So I'm definitely not gonna say that I missed the commute to the office. That's not on my list. I was just seeing how many times he contradicted himself versus last year's last year's take. Now I'm playing. I think my first one is my realization for 2022 is I need to say yes more. I think one of my major highlights from this year was the spontaneous trips to go and visit friends and family. So went to Switzerland this year, beginning of this year. I think it was maybe a week before Shawal mentioned he was going to Switzerland on a ski trip, and I said, why not? I'll be there. Booked a ticket. Also got the pleasure to see Pabilo there as well, right? Went away to Denmark with Daniel, Shawal as well. My multiple trips to the US this year as well. So it's just that that ability to just continuously say yes. I think that was one of the main things. Second thing is not to take, and it kind of ties with that, but not to take life so seriously and focus on the future more than the sort of the current. So I think my mindset has always been, and I think mainly even through this group and a mastermind group, right, is okay, what is our plans for the next 5 years, or what we're doing right now to build our future, right? Sometimes we sacrifice sort of the moment, living in the moment, enjoying the journey. I'm more saying, okay, I don't want to do that because my net worth will be 2 million, 3 million, 4 million if I if I invest in this. And I realized this year that look, I've done the early sacrifices that I needed to do in the early stage of my life. And as long as I just let those things continue compounding and just doing the right things that I'm doing, I don't really need to worry about that. And I need to more switch to say, how do I improve the current moment and enjoy my current life, instead of saying, oh, I'm going to put this off or put that off. No, let me enjoy those moments, because tomorrow's never promised, right? And unfortunately in 2022, I lost a lot of family members, right? And I think that gives you that realization that tomorrow is never promised. So don't always sort of put off moments and experiences that you can have now. So that's the second one. And I think the third one is really health is important in every aspect. Like, it's got nothing to do with the financial elements of that. If you're not healthy first, all those other things don't feel that amazing, right? I think Daniel, we did an episode where Daniel was talking about, okay, how often do we get ourselves checked, right? Is there like an annual thing that you go and do like a full sort of MOT of your body, right? And that's something that I've done this year, where I've gone to the hospital, done a full check, right? And you're able to start saying, okay, what are areas that you can improve in life? Maybe it's drinking more water, if it's exercising, all these other elements, because you want to focus on it straight away. It's more preventative than actually curing when something actually happens. So health is important, and I think that's a big thing in 2022 for me, especially losing a lot of family members. So I'm taking that seriously. I want this group to hold me accountable, my friends to hold me accountable. But yeah, those are my 3 points.
Great. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing that, Olu. We'll move laterally to you, Shuel. Sorry, in case that wasn't it, we'll move laterally for those who are watching. To you, Shuel.
All right, perfect. And actually, do you know, Olu, it's good that you said that for us to keep you accountable, because I think even if you didn't offer us that olive branch, the guys that came to that Copenhagen trip will most definitely keep you accountable when it comes to your health and weight. And just a very quick story for our listeners. During a trip to Copenhagen earlier this year, I had the fortune of having some of my close friends and family come visit Copenhagen. And as part of that trip, we did a sumo wrestling activity. And as you can imagine, with a group of almost 16 to 20 guys, the weight ranges can differ considerably from around 50-ish kg to 100 plus kg. So in this sumo wrestling competition, we thought, let's be fair. Let's put people against people who are of a similar weight category to them. And in that weight category, we asked everyone for their weight. And Olu told us that his weight was 86 kg. So we put him in a sumo wrestling fight with someone of a similar weight class. The next day, we weren't sure of his weight. So he was like, Olu, let's double check what your weight is. He stood on the scales, and in one day, he went from 86 kg. Miraculously, the next day, he weighed 106 kg.
I'm not gonna lie, we had a heavy night. There was a lot of eating that night. A lot of drinking that night. So
no, actually, no, that was a lot of eating. Actually, there was a lot of eating that night. Not gonna lie.
There was.
So it fluctuates.
But we'll most definitely keep you accountable, Olu, and the guys on the trip, if they're listening, they'll also keep you accountable for the health element. But no, guys, thank you for sharing some beautiful moments. I think for me, the 3 elements, and a lot of this is actually surprisingly quite similar to some of the points that Daniel and Olu have mentioned. I think in terms of the personal development reflection is really the reflection that I can always do more than I think. So just to keep setting that bar higher. I think at the beginning of the year, when I looked at what I wanted to try and achieve this year with the studying, with the family stuff, the wedding, work continuing, then it did seem like a lot. But then now, God willing, we've got to the end of the year, and a lot of the big ticket items have been achieved. So I think it's that mindset that I can still continue to do more. So just continue to keep pushing myself every year. So that's a big personal development takeaway. From a business perspective, I think the reflection that I've concluded to at the end of the year is to also keep taking bigger risks and to have more accountability and to also have more skin in the game. Because I realized around those components, if I combine that with business, then my enthusiasm, my drive to learn, my appetite to deliver increasingly grows. And I do some of my best work whenever I've got more risk, more accountability, and more skin in the game. So this is something that I'm taking forward with me next year and beyond. And around that, also the concept of I'd prefer living with the risk versus living with the regret of not taking it. And this is something that I'll probably go into an episode next year in terms of some of the big decisions that I've concluded with this year. And then the last one for me, and this I think has been beautifully mentioned by both Olu and Daniel, is really around this friends and family segment, and to have an uncapped viewpoint in terms of financial and time investment for those experiences. Because I think whenever I've wanted to do something with the family, with friends, and I think that I'm struggling with the time, or financially I'm stretching myself, or whatever reason there is, whenever I've pulled through to ensure that those experiences are undertaken, they've always paid back massively in huge dividends afterwards. And I've always appreciated those moments, and it's given me more of a motivation to kick on to the next stage. So those are my 3. From a personal development perspective, doing more than I can think that I can do, so keep pushing. From a business perspective, keep taking bigger risks, more accountability and skin in the game. And then from a family and friend perspective, continue to have these shared experiences and don't put a cap on it from a time perspective or financial.
I definitely see you don't put a financial or time cap on that from your Instagram story, sure. So yeah, it's good to see you traveling. Good to see you traveling. Continue.
I was inspired by you, Daniel, back in the day, and you're inspired.
You never need to be inspired, but you never need to be inspired by me. Never need to be inspired by me. And then P, last but not least, yourself.
Yeah, so myself, I think I firstly open up just by saying I'm extremely I felt very thankful and very grateful throughout the entire year. I think I mentioned it on one of my takeaway episodes, which was kind of a reflection of after Jan was born. Just getting to this point of the year, I, my wife, my kids are all healthy. We're all happy, all smiling, and we just have great time together. So I think that's the number one reflection. Ollie, you mentioned how important health is, and I think the more we're doing as a group, as individuals, you start to understand just how important health is. The number one reflection I think I've had is just how much I love the work that I'm doing. And that goes beyond my corporate work, but the work that I'm doing with my wife, the work that I'm doing with my kids, just that ability to get up early and go for it, right? And put my family in a position where they can thrive more. I put myself in a position where I can learn and grow. That in itself is work, right? And so I love the responsibility. I love the weight on my shoulders. And that's not everyone can necessarily say that, and I've come to sort of learn and realize that that's what I relish, right? That pressure in terms of getting it right for my family. So that's a reflection for me that I think is quite powerful and something which I'll keep leaning into for many years to come. I think the other thing that I learned, and you guys have also mentioned as well, is this ability, this learning, and this realization that we can be more and do more, and we are more. And if I ask someone for feedback on me, what somebody may likely say is you're a very consistent person, you're quite resilient, you're quite disciplined. And what I've learned in this year is
ask me, I'll tell you something very different.
Yeah, you could have asked us on the podcast.
Ask me, I'll tell you
who are these
something
people?
I didn't ask you guys for a reason, but let's just say the general feedback would be those traits. And what I've learned is whilst they may be considered to be quite strong, I've learned they can get even stronger. Right. So I've had sprints this year. Road to November 5th is one of them. A yarn being born is another. We moved into our new apartment in Switzerland December of last year. So settling down into that work's been a change. So there's so many different things that have been changing and happening, acquiring deals at the same time. And you're finding a way to rise above it and keep it all going and moving all forward. So I think what I take into next year is this understanding that whatever you thought was high performance, you can 10x that, right? And I think it's just looking into ways of sort of doubling down and doing that. So I think those really are the two things for me. Loving the work that I do, loving the responsibility, the weight on my shoulders. I wouldn't want it any other way. The pressure to get it right, and realizing that I have so much untapped potential that is going to create even more value for the family, the community, and hopefully the country, right? If we start looking at certain projects and deals. So yeah, that for me is my reflection. I think maybe the other thing I might add to it is more around embrace more challenging and harder situations, because I think it's just about growth, right? I think look for the challenge and look for opportunities to get things done faster. If you take out time in some of our targets and goals, you realize how much more you can achieve and how much more efficient you can become. So yeah, those are some of the reflections I have for 2022. Overall, great year, super thankful. The last thing I will say actually is I've been recently reading headlines about Lionel Messi completing football. He's completed football. And I felt very similar early this year in the sense I've
Don't let that get to your head.
Listen.
Chill.
No, listen. Listen. No, listen. I think I've said it before. I've made a post in terms of completing life, right? So once Ayam was here, just having a perfect family, and just working towards the pursuit of excellence, there's an element of completion, right? So I just wanted to add that. So I feel great.
Messi's completion. Have you seen his accolades? It's not completion of 2 kids and a wife.
If I want to put my name somewhere near there, I can.
Daniel,
It's on you.
These kids haven't even graduated yet, and my man's talking about completion. You still got another 18 years.
Completion, is it?
But listen, listen, there's nothing wrong with me feeling like a sense of completion and accomplishment now.
It's
right?
right.
Just
Olu,
more to come.
Maybe Olu goes back to your
come.
point about what P's definition of completion is. Maybe ours is very high, is very up here, and his is just like, okay, it's just
This sounds
it's
this
around
sounds
coming
this sounds
coming
like
from.
he's
Go on.
road to November the 5th all again. It's like, what is his
Oh, yeah, that
level
was
of
it.
reaching?
Yeah, that was it.
What's
Yeah,
the
that was it.
level
The
of
lens is
success?
different. The lens is different.
And MP also let me know when in 2023 you want that feedback. Yeah, give me some stuff to work on. Anyway, we'll move on to the last segment of the episode. Is just kind of looking back in 2022 if there are any regrets, and we'll couple that with what we're looking forward to 2023. I'll be very brief. I think one of my regrets in 2022 was not reading enough, not making time to read. I started and I didn't finish. So what I want to do more in 2023 is I've got a whole box of books behind me that I'll do a take flight takeaway, and I spent about £500-600 on books in November. That was my road to November 5th to buy all the books. So I need to read them.
Question, Daniel.
He's-
How long
he's
are
on
these
Connect.
books? Are they the same sort of size?
Oh
as
no,
these?
they're not
Or-
picture books. They're not the picture books. No,
Okay.
no.
Okay.
Can I just say, you two just sound like haters, man. Honestly, it just sounds like black and white.
Oh,
niggas.
okay. So these are proper books. Okay.
Yeah. Proper book. Yeah.
Mate,
proper book.
the disrespect is
No, but it's
real
fine. No, but it's
today.
fine. But what they
Wow.
both no, but the thing is,
Wow.
it's fine because they both conceded results, right? So they
Hmm.
both conceded results from reading in 2018. So it's fine.
When you say results, do you mean that nice
Yeah.
shelf behind you, or what sort of results are you referring to?
It's fine. It's fine. No, it's fine. It's
P's books were something a bit like
Here we go.
Daniel. You haven't.
this kind of size. This kind of size.
Oh,
I tell you what. If you can, how about
wild.
No. Those are challenges.
no,
Let's
no,
keep
no,
the let's
no,
keep the
no, not
conversation
challenge.
flowing.
One reflection I had the other day. I was thinking to myself, until you've read a book a week for a whole year, you can't talk to me. So get there first.
All right then, Biff and Chip.
get there first. Reach that milestone first, and then let's have a conversation.
Okay, but it's not just about reading. It's about also retention.
Yeah, you can see
memory,
my
retention.
I-
So all them books on the top
I've got
shelf.
results.
Yeah,
I've got results.
name the books.
I've got
Name 3
results.
takeaways from each book on that top row. Name
You
3
can I'll do one better for you. I'll show you my results since 2018.
Okay,
But what I would like
cool.
just before, so a couple of things. Olu, you need a wife and 2 kids first before you can talk to me. And Daniel, you need to read a book a week before you can talk to me. And then we can have a conversation. Back to the episode, please.
I'm not going to respond to your comment. So I'll go next. In regards to my regrets, apart from having a
Choke
wife
on that
and 2
water,
kids, I'll say my regret for 2022 is not enough time alone. So what I mean about that is I think I've said yes to a lot of experiences, spending time with family and friends. But one of the things I said to myself, and you guys have heard quite a bit, was that I really wanted to go to Asia, right? So Bali was the main place I was mentioning. But what I'm excited and looking forward to in 2023 is I've decided I'm going to do a month remote. So it's either going to be February, where I'm going to be 100% remote in Asia, working and also taking some time just to really explore, and find myself.
That's big news. That's
No. Olu, let me know the dates, yeah. I'm not joking.
I'll share the dates, but I think you're busy.
Yeah.
no, he's not.
No. Jesse's a nursery full time. Don't worry about that. Let me know the dates. I can do remote work too. Yeah. Let me know.
So I want to do that. I've been looking. It's going to be either Vietnam or Indonesia. Are the 2 choices, and going to spend a month there.
Nice.
Cool.
Pass the baton over to Shuar.
This is a big question, guys. To be honest, I think this year I would say
I think Shua's got the same answer.
Sure. Don't say the same thing as P and say because you both have like Messy and completed life. You guys have zero regrets.
No. I think actually, do you know what? I think my regret would have been for this year if I and not to sound cryptic for the listeners, but I think this will make more sense in an episode for next year. My biggest regret this year would have been not taking a jump where I felt comfortable to bet completely on myself and those around me to build something even bigger than being part of a machine for something else. I think that would have been my biggest regret. But it's been a eventful couple of months, a transition period, I would probably describe it as, and something that I can go into more details next year. But I think if I didn't have the courage to take that jump this year, then that would have been by far the biggest regret. Not this year, but this is something that probably 10 years from now, I would have looked back at this moment, and that would have been the one regret where I would have said, okay, staying on the path that I'm in, I see that path and it's going great. But what could have been if I had taken that risk to bet on myself in a more substantial level? I think that would have been the biggest risk, but it's something that isn't going to be a risk because I'm taking that jump. But more information on another episode.
I love that one, Shuo. And for the listeners, there's definitely more to come on this space. And everyone on this podcast is extremely proud of you for that decision. So I can't wait to see and hear more about it.
Watch your space. And P, last but not least.
Yeah, I've thought long and hard about it.
Was it that road to November 5th? Wasn't
no.
To...
And honestly speaking, and this is not coming from a standpoint of like ego
Messy.
or big head. I don't have any regrets for 2022. There's not one specific thing I look at and say, oh, I should have done. I mean, apart from general, raising your standards across all areas in life and just trying to reach perfection and excellence, I don't have any regrets. And I think it's a lot to do with the fact that this year has felt very much like a compounding effect year, where a lot of the results I've seen this year have come from years of work and years of staying just consistent and building the right habits. So, like I said, honestly, hand on heart, it's not coming from a place of ego. It's coming from a place of just having a sharpened focus, putting in the work, and just being consistent with habits that are right for me and the family. No regrets.
Okay. So
I think we need to ask
2023.
Sorry?
What are you looking forward to most in 2023?
Oh, no. So that's an interesting one. So I thought about that, and
thank you all for listening to the episode.
No, there is what I haven't. So I'm yet to set targets for 2023. I haven't had a chance to reflect as of yet.
Kind of late,
but there is not really. But there is this sense of I'm 32 now, and I started working at the age of 22.
Bro,
so
you're 30. Bro, you're 33.
You're 33, bro.
33. Just turned 33. Sorry.
This is the man that has zero regrets.
The African coming out.
Daniel. Daniel.
I had to look twice. I was like, wait, did this guy forget?
It's fine. No, yeah. So just turned 33. So there's a sense of looking at where I can reinvent myself, right? So looking at, and that's the kind of theme for going into next year. So looking at really where I can sort of, the Renaissance man, as they call it, but reinvent myself in a number of areas to look for that next level of growth and evolution. So that's going to be the conversation that we'll be having as a 4 offline. But what I wanted to basically say is kind of done 10 years of working and building myself up to a certain point. And I've heard someone once say every 10 years you should do something different. So what part of my repertoire or movement moving forward can I do differently? And I think that's quite a big challenge, because you're ultimately saying to yourself, what are you going to stop and then start, right? So that's kind of maybe my focus. For a bit vague, but I think it will come out in some takeaway episodes as of next year.
And this is not career advice. So we'll, let's. This is not a Spotify wrap. This is a Take Flight podcast wrap. So this is us wrapping up 2022. For all of our listeners, we thank you very much for being. Whether you've been a seasoned listener, not missing an episode, or you jump on an episode here and there, we're very grateful. We wouldn't be able to do this without you. And for all of our sponsors, thank you for your continued sponsorship throughout the year. And we look forward to continue to partner with you in 2023, ACG group. So we want to wish you all a very happy festive period with your family, your friends, and your loved ones. And we look forward to seeing you back again in the new year. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay happy, and God bless.
Take off, take flight with you. We never fly, but we're